Hello, scholars. Welcome to the last week of school. Silent excitement. Well, we only have about 5 days starting with today, and that will be it. But I'm really excited because I know that each and every single one of you has grown, and I'm excited because you have learned so many new skills this year that we are going to put into action when we move on to the next level. Whoa. Well, today smug. I'm feeling smug because today is my birthday. So cool. Well,
today is my birthday and it is also Monday, May 18th, 2020.
I wonder how you are feeling today. I don't know. Well, today, scholars, we are going to read a different part of a non-fiction book. This book is actually fiction, but I know that we can also learn from a fiction book. I know that it has non-fiction content in there. Well, are you ready to see what book we're gonna read? Well, here we go. We are going to read this exciting book called How Much is a Million? Well, look at that, scholars. I'm already making predictions in my mind. I am keeping that in mind. So cool. Are you ready? So today it's going to be a little bit different. We are going to be reading the book this way and you're going to be reading with me. There's so much fun pictures as we read it, and I think it's going to be amazing if we read it like this today. How much is a million? How much is a million? Whoa. If 1 million kids climbed onto one another's shoulders, they would be taller than the tallest buildings, higher than the highest mountains, and farther up than airplanes can fly. If you wanted to count from 1 to 1 million, it would take you about 23 days. Scholars, how long did it take us to count to 100? Go. That's right. It took us 1 minute to count to 100. I know that it did not take us very long to count to 100, but to count to 1 million, it would take us up to 23 days. That means we would sit here and not eat, not sleep, not do anything except count over 3 weeks. So I'm gonna write that down in my chart. Okay, let's keep reading. If a goldfish bowl were big enough for 1 million goldfish, ooh, look at this picture right here. Whoa. It would be large enough to hold a whale. Oh my goodness, take a look at this. Presto, 100 stars. If this book had 1 million tiny stars, they would fill 70 pages. Climb aboard.
You ready for this? Whoa, look at that. Full of stars.
There you have 100,000 stars. If we take this 7-page journey 10 times, we'll pass 1 million stars. Let's do that later. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. Tell me, how many pages of tiny stars would we need to get to 1 million stars? How many pages of tiny stars would we need to get to 1 million stars? Go. That's right, it would take us 70 pages. So I'm gonna write that down. How big is a billion? If a billion kids made a human tower, they would stand up past the moon. Wow. Let's zoom into that. Look at this. Really cool. If you sat down to count from 1 to 1 billion, you would be counting for 95 years. How long will it take us to count to 1 billion? How long will it take us to count to 1 billion? Go. That's right, it would take us 95 years. Let's write that down. Well, I need to take a moment to stop and visualize what this really means. So if I need to, if I want to really understand what the author is telling me, scholars, well, you're about like 7, 8 years old right now. If you started counting right at this very moment to 1 billion and did nothing else except count for 95 years, you would be 102 or 103 when you got to 1 billion. That's longer than even most people live. If you found a goldfish bowl large enough to hold 1 billion goldfish, it would be as big as a stadium. Whoa. Take a look at that. Really, really cool. If this book had 1 billion tiny stars, its pages spread side by side would stretch almost 10 miles. How many pages of stars would we need to count to 1 billion? Go. That's right, it would be 10 miles of pages. Say, whoa. All right, so let's write that down. How tremendous is 1 trillion? If 1 trillion kids stood on top of each other, they would reach way, way beyond the moon. Well, let's see. Beyond Mars and Jupiter too, and almost as far as Saturn's rings.
Whoa.
If you wanted to count from 1 to 1 trillion, it would take you almost 20. Oh wait, I was wrong. It would take you almost 200,000 years.
Well, look at all those zeros.
Scholars, can anyone ever count to 1 trillion? Go. That's right. It would take 200,000 years to count to 1 trillion. No one ever lives that far, so let's write that down. If you put 1 trillion goldfish in a bowl, the bowl would have to be as big as a city harbor. If you put 1 trillion of our stars onto a gigantic roll of paper, it would stretch all the way from New York to New Zealand. So, how many pages of stars would I need to count to 1 trillion? Go. That's right, it would go from New York to New Zealand. So let's write that down. So scholars, even though this was a fiction book, we learned so many facts about stars and how many days it would take us to count. It's really cool. It's also important you as a scholar to take note of what we are learning like we did today, because we were able to compare how much of what is more than what. So seeing those similarities and those differences. Well, scholars, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have an amazing Monday. But before I let you go, I want to give a shout out to Maverick. I want to give a shout out to Maverick and Naomi for showing me their work and sending me a picture of it. Here it is. Thank you, friends. Have a wonderful, wonderful Monday. Happy birthday. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.